Good day. Very few franchises have a consistent standard of quality when it comes to video games. Star Wars does have a better track record than most, but then again we got Star Wars The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed 2, and there are a few other crappy games here and there. And then of course there's the Star Trek franchise. Oh good God, is there Star Trek. Just about every video game set in the Star Trek universe is complete crap. Except, of course, for Star Trek Starfleet Command and its various sequels. And I guess the most recent Star Trek game that was any good was Star Trek Legacy, but even then, it was pretty inferior to the earlier Star Trek Starfleet Command PC games. Now, the Aliens Versus Predator series generally always has very good video game adaptations, and the one we're going to take a look at today is Aliens Versus Predator Extinction. In the late 90s, early 2000s, the AVP series was going strong, with AVP 1 and 2 for the PC, along with numerous other games preceding them. Now, all the games up until AVP Extinction were action games, but AVPE was actually something different. It was an RTS, which may seem odd to some since the AVP series was usually not all that tactically complex. You mainly just shot everything that moved. Here though, you still kill everything that moves, but you actually use your mind to kill them as well. Now AVPE really shows that the developers actually had a driving force other than money. They could have just created another generic FPS and put it on the market for a quick buck. Oh wait. They did. 7 years later! But thankfully, in 2003, the developers actually had a brain and decided to change things up a bit. The gameplay for AVP Extinction is different from most other RTSs. You don't collect resources or build bases, rather you focus more on unit management, similar in style to ground control. You can call in reinforcements, but the method by which you do so varies from race to race. As the Predators, you get the Shrine, which is the best base unit of them all. It has high health and can defend itself for frickin' laser beams! And it can also move, which is very important, because when you've got a static base, usually every bloody unit wants to attack it! The Predator reinforcements arrive faster than any other races. Mainly, they just drop in with drop pods almost instantaneously. The Colonial Marines use the Comtech to call in reinforcements, and he can die very, very easily. Pro tip, leave one by the initial starting point, because if your Comtechs all die, you get no more reinforcements. Mainly because as the Colonial Marines, you will lose units at a fairly rapid rate. Unfortunately, your reinforcements do not come in nearly as quickly as the Predators do. Rather, they take about 20 seconds to arrive. Now, since the Xenomorphs lack any military-industrial complex whatsoever, they have to build their armies via conscription. Essentially, the Queen sends out some drones, and the drones bring back various animals and humans to be asked to join the Xenomorph army. And sometimes they're asked a little forcefully, but eventually they all come around to joining. Now, while resource gathering and base building are not really a big part of the game, there is at least one resource that you have to acquire. And this too varies from faction to faction. The Predators get honor points by killing enemies and collecting skulls of said enemies. Yes, hunting has now been turned into a job. Next you'll be telling me that playing video games can become a career. Honor points are used for buying new Predators and upgrading them as well. Most of the money that you spend will be on upgrades, as each unit is really quite essential for victory, especially when the Predators are concerned. The Colonial Marines get credits by killing enemies and fixing atmosphere processors. One odd thing here is the fact that the atmosphere processors eventually explode. Well, that's designed obsolescence for you. Now, the Xenos get hive points by killing enemies and successful chest bursts. The controls for AVP-E are really quite good, especially for a console RTS. You can access your units and navigate menus with a minimum of difficulty, and there is a button that allows you to jump straight to your primary base unit. Now, as for the graphics, they have thankfully aged quite well. The units have a good amount of detail, and for the most part you can tell them apart from one another. And despite AVP-E's age, the battles still look pretty bloody awe-inspirational, and it is still really quite epic when you send an entire army of predators to take down an alien queen. There is a graphical glitch that is common to most RTSs. Essentially, whenever you get a column of troops moving, they sometimes like to phase into one another, and it does look kind of humorous, and it's reminiscent of something from Star Wars.
These tracks are side by side. Sand people always ride single file to hide their numbers.
The music for the game is fitting, and all the tracks work with the settings they are in, and generally help with setting the mood. The sound design is decent all around, but however, some of the sounds are somewhat muted, and the android has got to have the creepiest voice known to mankind.
Yes. Understood.
The AI for the game ranges from good to abysmally bad. Unlike in other games, your units actually have the intelligence to attack enemy units that they come across as they walk slowly to their objectives. Where the AI falls flat is in the pathfinding. Now, an issue that crops up in just about every single RTS is bad pathfinding AI. It seems that your bloody armies just cannot walk in a straight goddamn line. What is so hard about that? Half the time you'll have one or two stragglers going off in completely opposite directions. Sometimes your army will go all the way around the bloody map just to go through a little tiny gap. What the hell? I just don't get why the pathfinding AI sometimes like to let a couple of troops just go off on their own to get killed. And since you will have to be managing your main force, it is somewhat difficult to just abandon them for a while and then focus on just one idiot that decided to leave the main group. My advice? Just let those fools die. In the game, there are 3 distinct races, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. In many respects, you could compare this game to StarCraft, as each race allows for a distinctive playstyle. The first race we're going to take a look at is my personal favorite, the Predators, and they are the least numerous race and can be compared to the Protoss from StarCraft. They have the lowest population of all 3 races and have units that have a great deal of health and damage potential. My personal favorite unit in the game is the Stalker, as they have a spear gun that is just devastating when used against organics. The Predators are also fairly self-sufficient units, as they can mechanically heal themselves with the Medicomp, and this is a great asset in the more difficult areas of the game. Of the many upgrades that you can get for the Pred army are vision upgrades that correspond to the ones seen in the Alien Versus Predator first-person shooters. Now, why these Predators don't already have them installed in their masks? Well, that's just supply chain bureaucracy for you. The vision upgrades allow your Preds to spot enemies from a distance, which is very useful for spotting large groups of enemies that would like to murder you. The Colonial Marines are the race that somewhat resembles the Terrans from StarCraft. They are more numerous than the Predators and have a high damage potential, but this is offset by low durability, which means that you're going to have huge armies decimated by dug-in Predators or wiped out by Xenos. The Marines are very decentralized when compared to the Predators. They have to have 2 units that the Predators consolidate down into 1 and none. The Marines require a medic to heal units and a comm-tech to call in a dropship, both of which are weak and can die easily. Also, the Colonial Marines have to have an android to carry heavy equipment, and they also have to use the android to spot enemies from a distance because they carry the motion tracker. The Colonial Marines are also the only army that fields vehicles, as you can call in the Power Loader. My God, it's glorious. A giant engine of death that is armed with either 2 chain guns or twin metal storm launchers. This Titan is very, very necessary for dealing with the rather powerful foes later in the game. The Xenos are clearly most like the Zerg, as they generally just rush their enemies. They are also the only faction that does not have any sort of army structure in place. Essentially, all your forces are more or less extensions of the Queen's will. But it would be funny to wonder if the warrior Xenos ever complain about rear echelon facehuggers. Unlike with the first 2 factions, the Xenos Xenos do not use their hive points to buy units. Instead, the queen lays eggs for free, and then you use the facehuggers within to facehug enemies to increase your army. Furthermore, when you attack any enemy with your Xenos, they don't go for the killing blow, and instead only render foes comatose for impregnation. Also, unlike with the other two factions, the queen is really formidable and is a capable frontline fighter, and can easily be used to overwhelm more difficult strongholds. Now, one of my favorite units in the game is the carrier, because with it you can kill any enemy with one hit from your facehuggers of doom. Also, it is the one alien that is the most Gigeresque, mainly because it is really quite grotesque to say the least. And like with the AVP FPSs, this is my least favorite faction, mainly because your units can die very easily and many of them are not ranged. And the carrier unit itself is only available in late game. Now, one commonality of the RTS genre is the lack of a good story, the games by Massive notwithstanding. AVPE, despite having no real voice acting outside of the units just spouting their random one-liners like, "Ready!" and having no cutscenes, this game actually has a pretty compelling story. Like with AVP2, the campaigns for all three races interconnect with one another. What you do in the Marine campaign has an impact in the Predator campaign, and what you do in the Predator campaign has an impact on the Alien campaign. The Predator campaign in particular really fleshes out the Predator society more than just about any other game, and it also shows off new technologies and new social organizations, and all told, the story is really quite compelling. Now, one of the very best aspects of the game is the bestiary. Essentially, it is an AVP holy book. This thing is tremendously awesome. Why? Because it has extensive entries on just about anything AVP related. You can learn all about the Spearmaster and how they get their armor, and you can learn about the Smart Gunner and the Power Loader, and you can also learn about the Carrier and why he is so awesome. For an AVP nerd, just learning that this thing exists is enough to cause a bloody brain aneurysm. The only thing this game really lacks is multiplayer of any sort, and that is really disappointing, and the game really would have been better for it. But then again, if they had to reduce the overall quality of the game or cut some content to include multiplayer, then it is really good that it is absent, because there is a whole dearth of really crappy RTSs with a multiplayer component, and there's not that many RTSs out there with a good single-player focus with a good story. Really though, it would have been nice if this game had been released on the PC, since at this point there would quite likely have been a multiplayer mod released for this game. Mainly because this game is really quite well balanced, and with the RTS genre, a multiplayer option actually enhances the fun quite a bit, because there is nothing more satisfying than crushing your weakling foes.
Weakling foe, huh? Like, I was a weakling foe when I was using excellent strategy in that Sins of the Solar Empire game, but you insta-killed me with the Novolith cannon.
I still won that one.
You cheating ass! You wouldn't have won if you had used fair strategy.
In war, all is fair. In the end, AVPE is a well-made, well-written RTS, and if you aren't a fan of the genre, then this is a game that could really get you into it, because it has an intuitive interface and you don't have to spend hours and hours collecting resources. And so, this is General Lotz saying, to war!
You have no chance to survive, mate. Your time. All your base, all your base. Don't belong to us. All your base, all your base. Don't belong to us. All your base,